so I'll go ahead and call the,
Can you wait just a minute?
Oh.
Will's trying to get it streamed.
okay, sure.
Technology.
He's doing it remotely. Okay, he said it's fine now.
Okay, so I've got 4 o'clock, so I will call the town council meeting of Tuesday, October 12th, 2021 to order. And the first order of business would be the invocation and the pledge.
All right, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for allowing all of us to gather here together this evening. And thank you so much for the absolutely beautiful weather that we've had. Father, we just ask that we may have a safe and enjoyable and productive meeting this evening as we continue to serve all the residents of our wonderful town. And Father, we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Terry, you want to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Councilmember Jay Mattingly is out. He was at a MML meeting this past weekend and wasn't over until this afternoon. So I guess he's on his way back. Plus he had another meeting to go to for work. And then Councilmember Mary should be here in a few minutes. So we'll go ahead and get started there. I think there are a couple of additions and deletions. Do you want to just go over those, Michelle?
Sure. We are deleting the W&W striping request. We are going to rebid that contract. We added extending the Beacon newsletter contract for printing press and awarding the contract for the boardwalk redecking at the wharf. Under my report.
Okay. Okay. Everyone should have gotten a copy of the minutes from last month. Any comments, corrections, additions, deletions?
I move to approve the minutes of the September 13th, 2021 Town Council meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. And Rebecca, the treasurer's report, please.
Okay, briefly, we'll talk about the September financial information that was included in the packet. I did not need to transfer any money to or from the local government investment pool. We are 25% through the budget. There's nothing really interesting at this point we need to talk about. I still have a few journal entries on my to-do list to reallocate some expenses across departments. But other than that, really nothing to bring to your attention. And I continue to work on the financial statements. Those reports and some other state required reports do have an October 31st deadline. And I will prepare them. They need to be reviewed by the auditor and submitted by the end of the month. There's really no major change from the last preliminary reports that I gave you at the previous council meeting. I still am projecting that both enterprise fund and general fund will yield a surplus, and then we'll plan for the auditor to make the presentation at the November council meeting.
Okay.
That's all.
Any questions for Rebecca? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. And Jana, Planning Department, please.
Planning and Zoning Commission met on September 20th. They had one item on their agenda. That was the architectural review and approval for the Vineyards Restaurant down on Merchants Lane. They're just going to get a revamp of their exterior and interior. See a newer type of design, and the Planning Commission did approve that. As of right now, the meeting for October the 18th
has no items for the agenda, so I do believe that we're going to cancel that hearing.
Okay.
However, we will have a meeting in November.
Any questions for?
Actually, I'm sorry, what was the restaurant? I missed the name.
Wendy's.
Oh, Wendy's. Thanks.
They're just getting a refresh.
It's been a while since they've done anything there, so it's,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. And everyone's gotten a copy of the police report from Corporal Nelson. Now, we were just talking before the meeting that the traffic counter is on Washington Street because you asked it to be there for Father Andy White.
So the traffic safety reached out to state highway to ask if we were identified an intersection starting there at that, with following the way and Duncan and the morning traffic. And they, at that point, it was like 2 months ago, they said that they would put us on the hook to get down here. So I would assume that's probably what it's for,
Okay.
to see that slow
Good.
traffic.
It's certainly does get backed up there. And I saw out on Route 5 also by the bank. Any idea what that?
I don't know if that's just in conjunction with our request,
Okay.
because of the intersection where it backs out there, or not. I could ask Sergeant Conley and see if they reached back out to him, and told him they were, even if they didn't tell me, know that's part of it.
Yeah, because we did reach out to the county and ask for them to look at Clark's Rest, the entrance there also.
I'll reach out to District 5 and see if I can find out what's going on.
Okay. Okay. Anything for Sergeant Nelson, Corporal Nelson? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
There you go, just in time. Starting to go into Lachelle's report, so
I'm gonna skip the GHD presentation for just a minute until Jeff Sturvick gets here. Got stuck in traffic, so. And we had talked about the W&W striping contract, we removed from the agenda. So if we could skip down to the extending the Beacon newsletter contract with Printing Press. So Printing Press has been doing the Beacon printing 3 times a year. The contract was bid in February of 2020 and was awarded to Printing Press. There are 2 one-year extensions remaining, and we do recommend extending the contract for 1 year. They are asking for a slight price increase because just like everything else, prices have gone up. The cost per issue is $320 that they are experiencing increases of, but they're just asking for $160 an issue. So it's within the contract that during the extension they could come back for a request. So the new price would be $2,158 per issue. I mean, they do a nice job, they work well with us.
any comments, questions?
All right, well, I move to extend the Beacon printing contract with Printing Press for 1 year at $2,158 per issue.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Ready? Nothing like popping in. All right, let me just go back to number 1 then. So, the town had funded a floodplain study for Town Run in conjunction with the Silver Jackets team, which is funding a study of McIntosh Run. The Silver Jackets team is a group of volunteers from MDE, Army Corps, floodplain, DNR, and they do projects around the state. So we had met with them and we took on the Town Run study, and they're moving forward. We have a meeting in November for the McIntosh Run study. We wanted to move forward sooner on Town Run so that if we needed to modify the drawings for the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant, we would have the information that we needed. So GHD is going to present the findings from that study and the recommendations, and And then we have some other items that are on the agenda related to that. So Jeff Sturden is here.
Yeah, and Ashton Rogers, thanks for letting us come in and brief you on what we came up with from the floodplain study. It was a pretty good study, and I think we've got some pretty good information for you. I think we're also gonna give you some updates on the treatment plant performance because we had some blips earlier in the year. So, I'm gonna turn it over to Ashton Rogers, who actually completed the floodplain study.
Good evening, thanks for the opportunity to share the information we found. Hopefully you can see that, but, so for our flood study of the treatment plant, we'll just go through the agenda for, it's a real short presentation. We'll cover the objectives of the study, alternatives. We went over conclusions, recommendations, and then open it up for brief questions, and Jeff will talk about the plant at the end. But in particular, if you take a look at the picture on the slide right there, that's the treatment plant in August of last year that was almost inundated by a storm event that was not a 100-year storm. It was just heavy rainfall, and this was what spurred the study. The concern being that we cannot afford to have the loss of the sewage treatment plant. And for your information, for those who don't know, the treatment plant is less than half a mile away from where we are right now, down Fenwick Road, east of here. So we'll briefly go over the study objectives and the areas. We conducted a topo survey of the entire treatment plant and much of the catchment area in the vicinity. Not the full watershed catchment, but we also incorporated information from FEMA, their flood models. We took a look at Town Run as it enters into and the confluence with Breton Bay to consider offsite runoff. So the process of the model was, let's assess existing conditions, gather as much data as we can, move over to a model, develop a flood model, HECRES model of the existing conditions, then take that model, implement a few alternatives, see what it does, and finally taking those results and putting together a plan to move forward, recommendations to the town to move forward and protect the asset. So the picture on the top is a picture of Town Run, which shows bank erosion, and there's been a lot of erosion on the stream itself. And of course, again, to reiterate the flooding issues at the treatment plant, I've shown the same picture again. A brief overview of the alternatives we looked at in our study. We looked at dredging the confluence of Breton Bay and Town Run. There's an obvious sandbar at that confluence that we thought perhaps could be a cause of the high flood levels at the treatment plant. And the objective of that was to create 3 feet of freeboard. Freeboard meaning 3 feet of separation between the 100-year flood elevation and our assets, our critical assets. So the objective of dredging was to lower the 100-year flood elevation so that we could achieve that 3 feet of separation. The second alternative we looked at was a flood wall. Let's build a wall around the treatment plant that's high enough to keep the waters out of the plant, but that would require us to build a pump station inside of the wall to get any stormwater runoff from the inside out. And again, the objective was to protect the treatment plant and its assets. The third option was flood mitigation. What are our critical infrastructure on the site? How can we protect that critical infrastructure, and how can we achieve, again, the 3 feet of freeboard protection? And the fourth option we looked at was the stream restoration of Town Run as it goes down into Breton Bay, and that would be looking mostly from the culvert from Fenwick down to Breton Bay. And the objective there was simply to lower the flood elevation by widening the channel, allowing more flow through the riparian buffer, which would also try to reduce velocities in the stream and reduce erosion of the stream. So moving on to the critical infrastructure on the site, we've listed in in our presentation, but in particular, there's an electrical building that doesn't achieve the 3 foot of freeboard that we would like to achieve. And if that infrastructure goes down, we'll lose the treatment plant. We have clarifiers that are close to being inundated by the flood levels. We have other critical structures on the site that are close to being inundated by those flood levels. And just to also give you another small piece of findings we got is that the 100-year floodplain elevations shown in the FEMA models from our revised, updated model, it appears that the flood levels are actually a couple of feet higher than the current model that FEMA has. So it was concerning, but that also fell in line with what the folks at the treatment plant are seeing today. They're seeing higher levels than what you would expect given the current levels shown in the FEMA flood maps. So we went on to look at all those alternatives, look at them for cost. The dredging would be a short-term cost for the first year or so, but in the long term, it's really expensive. The flood wall would be pretty high cost in the beginning and in the long term with maintenance of that pump station. The flood proofing would be relatively low cost compared to the others, with low maintenance as well. And the stream restoration, I guess it's a matter of perspective, but it's somewhere in between. But not as expensive as the flood wall or the dredging options. Looking at the pros and cons of each, the dredging obviously is going to have to be an annual process and high long-term costs with not a lot of results. The dredging only lowered the floodplain by 6 inches. Didn't achieve the goals.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it was an alternative that we would not recommend moving forward. The flood wall option provided protection to the treatment plant, but was high costly. It would require quite a bit of permitting, given that it's in the stream, and at the end of the day, cost as well was really high. So looking at the flood mitigation option, which was providing flood proofing of assets on the treatment plant, it seemed like that was the most appropriate option that could be implemented now as soon as possible and provide a level of protection that would be acceptable with the recommendation of looking at further measures down the road. And that's where the stream restoration option came in. When we looked at the stream restoration option, it did lower the floodplain by about 18 inches. However, there'd be property acquisitions, there'd be work needed outside of the Lennon Town jurisdiction,
Right.
dealing with St. Mary's County, which in itself was not a deal breaker, because stream restoration can get credits for, in particular for St. Mary's County, toward their MS4 permitting. So what we had recommended to move forward as soon as possible is to implement the flood mitigation option alternative 3, which recommended moving forward with flood proofing that critical infrastructure. For example, the picture on the top right shows what we would propose for the electrical room at the treatment plant, and it was merely raising the doors of the treatment plant to heights higher than the flood levels. If it was to flood, the doors would be above the flood level, water couldn't get in. It's not as simple as that, but that's the basic idea. And that could be achieved as soon as now with the current expansion project. That would be up to you all to decide, but
Sure.
it can be achieved fairly soon. And then a continued action would be to look at the stream restoration option. Could be an opportunity to collaborate with St. Mary's County they get a stream restoration to meet their current requirements. You get a lower flood elevation to protect your treatment plant. There's more details that need to be ironed out, but that's the basic idea.
Yeah, the main concern there is purchasing of private property.
There'd be,
Also.
there'd be property acquisitions needed, yes.
And
But-
private property, not county property, so.
That's right. So that is a challenge, absolutely. And we also recommend taking a look at armoring of the banks adjacent to the treatment plant. The banks seem to be eroding pretty severely, and that's an opportunity that would not necessarily require St. Mary's or bridges of private property, but would protect the treatment plant from erosion creeping into the site. So that would be part of the short-term objectives or recommendations, and the long-term being, let's take a look at a stream restoration. And that's all I had for you. I was told I had 10 minutes.
Okay.
I sat through the long ones.
And just to clarify, during the storms last year, we had no discharge from the plant, even though the tides were
I
very
believe
high.
that's true, yes.
Okay, any comments, questions?
Do we know if FEMA is going to be updating their maps to take into account the newer storm intensities we're getting now?
We do know that MDE is working on looking on that at the moment, with the Silver Jackets, I believe.
And they actually asked for our data. That was part of the
Okay.
agreement for us to provide what we found.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so when we were in data gathering, we went out into Brenton Bay because we thought the sandbar was a big holes of it, but it turns out through the model, the sandbar is not really a big holes of it. But we did get some bathymetry out in Brenton Bay.
Right. Once, while we've got everyone here, mention Macintosh Run.
Right, so what kind of kicked us all off was we had this large meeting with the Silver Jackets, and GHD was involved in the meeting, and so we agreed to do this study, and they are working on, the Silver Jackets have funded the study for Macintosh Run, and that we have a kickoff meeting in November regarding that, where we'll be talking about this study as well as finding out the timeline for them to do the Macintosh study. And we also will be working with them to see what kind of recommendations they have for Macintosh out of their study as well.
But just wanted everyone to know that we're looking at both, you know, Town Run and Macintosh, so.
I do have a question. So, for full disclosure, I live right down by the sandbar, and I've watched that grow over the past 15 years. And so I understand that the sandbar isn't causing this, but is that going to continue to grow? I mean, is this going to be like a current evolving issue? Is the sandbar going to continue to get bigger and bigger? I mean, what's actually going on behind my house?
I can't really answer to that question, other than it's obviously deposition of sediment from upstream. That's the likely cause of it. Whether it's going to continue to grow forever, I'm not sure. I don't think it will, but I believe it was dredged several years ago.
It's been a long time since it's been dredged.
It's been a long time, and then it came back. So we
Actually, a lot of that came from, I believe, the governmental center site when a lot of work was being done there.
I guess my concern is that, you know, as we see things continue over there, I mean, is this raising the levels by 3 feet or whatever? I mean, how long is that going to be good for? Is this going to continue to raise? I mean, is this going to be an evolving problem?
Well, the 3 feet of freeboard is what we recommend based on our experience. Flood levels are raising all over the place. I don't think they'll stop raising, but the 3 feet gives us a long enough buffer that it should at least last the lifespan of the treatment plant. Unless the treatment plant is here 200 years from now and we're all underwater. But there is the 3 feet is, I believe the minimum is 1 foot, but for a critical asset like this, the 3 feet is what we practice as an industry safe standard.
And I guess I would add that, you know, where that sandbar is where it has the most effect on the plant is at low tide conditions, right? When the water level is real low, the water has to get over top of that sandbar when it normally wouldn't be there, right? So the water level would be lower. When we do our modeling for the worst case scenario, we have to assume the high tide condition in Brett Bay, and that means the water level is 3 foot higher than the top of the sandbar. So the sandbar rising affects the water level up at the plant a little bit, but during high tide, there's so much more volume there for the water to get out because the water level is so much higher that the sandbar doesn't have that much of an effect.
Okay.
So
It's not to say that the sandbar isn't an issue. One of the reasons we kept the federal channel in place was in case we wanted to dredge down the road, because then it would be an Army Corps project. I mean, we would have to find a dredge spoil site and to take it, what they do dredge out. But it could be an issue for other things, but what they're saying is, as far as keeping the flooding from the wastewater treatment plant, that's not the alternative. That's going to help.
And there are programs in the state to get funding for dredging opportunities like that.
And I think we should pursue that.
And it's probably something that we will talk about in the Silver Jackets meeting, and as things progress with the different projects, I think that would be something that would definitely be explored. And then I do have Joe Boussier. I asked him to attend today, our wastewater treatment plant superintendent, just in case, just so he could see the presentation as well, or if he had questions. And then Jeff's gonna kind of update us on the operations part.
Joe's the one that sent me the picture of the flood. I almost fell out of my chair when I opened it up. I was like, Joe. Because he didn't send anything, he just sent the picture. He got called very quickly. Yeah, he got called very quickly going, what the heck? So, yeah, and I would just go on to say that, like the flooding that we're seeing in Ellicott City, you know, the past years, this is all happening in the state of Maryland and in around the mid-Atlantic. We're just getting higher intensity rainstorms. You've seen it, you drive down the roads here, you can see the sand on the banks of the creeks because it's all coming down so fast and washing out. And so, yeah, I would suggest that sandbar is probably going to continue to grow because of velocity coming downtown.
I mean, I'm not concerned about the sandbar for me. I could care less. But, you know, my bigger concern is that if we're continuing to see things, that we probably need to be just even more proactive than just doing this instant fix now, you know, because it seems like there's going to continue to be problems.
Yeah, I think that forward-looking view is good, and we're seeing a lot of that in the state as okay, this is one item, but where are we going to be in 20 years? And so, yeah, we'll continue to bring that information to the town. And there, I don't think that there's as much of an issue, but there are other items we should be considering to keep an eye on. So, the next part is just plant performance. We had some equipment failures in the treatment process at the beginning of this year, which caused some pretty higher than normal nutrient levels coming out of the treatment plant. And as I say that, previously this treatment plant for the last 5 years has operated very well for nutrient removal performance, which is our limit, our permit limit that the state gives us. So up until January or about this year, it was great performance, and then we had some equipment issues, and that actually projected us to go over our nutrient limits that we have in our permit for the state. So we got involved and started talking with Joe about all the performance parameters there, and we worked with the staff to find out what was really going on there, and we replaced some equipment, and we also started a methanol addition system in the filters. We got that worked out, and since then we were projected to go over our limit this year, but since we made the improvements there, you can see here that on the graph here that the black line is the nitrogen that was going out of the facility, and this middle line is the average. And you can see that as soon as we fixed the equipment and added the chemicals, that the nutrient levels have gone well below our average number in the orange. So plant performance has returned. It's actually better than it was before. So just wanted to give kudos to the ops team, and they're doing a great job down there. We just need to keep an eye on, make sure the equipment is being maintained, and we're keeping an eye on our performance.
Was that old equipment that wasn't part of the?
It was a part of it was a DO probe that we had replaced, but it really it didn't seem to be talking to the computer control system all the time. It would phase in and then phase out, and we just finally had to say, okay, let's get that out of there, get a new one in there, and we got the equipment manufacturer to come in and look at some of the settings on the computer to figure out how fast to speed the blowers up or slow them down. They reset a few of those settings, and we're getting great performance. So,
Good,
so it looks like we're going to be under our permit for the year, so that's a good thing. There shouldn't be issues with the MDE, we hope.
Will we be fined? Is there a possibility of being fined if we go over for a month?
Yes, we went over for the month of May, and we haven't, it was slightly, but we were over for the month. I'm hoping that because we're going to be way under for the year, that there won't be any issues, but we might get a letter from the MDE. So, but I mean, I think our prior performance to date in the town has been wonderful, so that should bode well for us with the MDE if it becomes an issue.
What's a fine like that look like?
Yeah,
I'm not
usually
sure.
those fines like this would come in to say, you know, what did you do to fix it? You know, especially if it hadn't been fixed yet.
So it's not like a $25,000 bill. It's like a don't do it again, make sure it's better kind of thing.
Not typically. They want to look into the issue, and if you've jumped in and fixed it and repaired it, then they kind of take a different view. If you haven't done anything, that's when they say, you know, here's the bill, and usually you end up negotiating. You go in and fix it at times that say I spent this much, and you can negotiate the fee a little bit. But it's for the facilities that don't do anything, that's where they start to fine you pretty heavily.
And we also get a grant each year if we meet our permit, and like this year we got extra money that we usually get about $30,000. So, I mean, it could impact that, but hopefully not.
Okay.
Questions?
No, good job
No?
keeping an eye on
Yeah.
it, though.
Yeah.
Thank you for keeping that down.
Okay. This is just a little report, but it's the graph pretty much says it all. So the total estimated that we think we're going to be at is 7,200 pounds, and we have a permit for 8,280. So we're going to be under by around 2,000 pounds. As long
Good.
as performance keeps up, Joe. Okay.
So
That's
just
it.
stick around for a minute because we're going to go do the task orders, so in case
Sure.
there's any questions.
Yep.
Okay, so based on the presentation, the alternative would be to, that we would recommend would be to flood-proof the critical infrastructure. And the design task order was task order 18 for the expansion. We are requesting a modification to that to cover actually a number of things, but to include the design to this critical infrastructure. Also, I guess the stormwater coming down the hill, looking at the stormwater management for that. And then a few other items, they're listed on page 3 of that task order.
Yeah, I would just add to that stormwater item is that for the years, the stormwater has come down and run right through the middle of the plant. And we're going to take this opportunity to reroute it below the plant, catch it before it goes into the facility, and reroute it behind the plant out to Breton Bay. And because it's causing issues down as the plant goes, because water sheet flows over the bank and into the facility. So we're going to try to take care of that right now.
This is the water that comes down, say, Park Avenue, crosses Courthouse
So
Drive.
part of what we did when we purchased the lot on Van Wert Lane for the shellfish protection tanks, was the storm water management easements across behind the apartment that's down there, and across the parking area that we had sold. So this was all in consideration of this project. The change order is $172,800, modifying the task order 18. And then we had a second task order that we, is just for general maintenance and assistance when we have issues at the plant or at the well, or we've had so many this year, the well, the water tower. We call on GHD, and so this is just a task order for hourly services depending on what services we need, and so that Joe and the rest of the staff can call on them as needed. So Rebecca had recommended maybe we do this on a fiscal year, 25,000. They're adding a description on the bills so that she could break it out between water and wastewater, so we needed to add some money to that task order, and we're requesting 25,000 for that.
So when you were talking about rerouting the storm water directly to the stream, so what's happening now? Is it going through the water treatment plant? Is that so it's being treated, or no?
Over the lane, like flooding from the bank that's on from Courthouse Drive. It just floods down that bank into the plant.
But not into the treatment tanks. It just flows onto the site and then gets caught in our storm drains down there. And so if we're having a flooding event or a high rain event, it just adds to the issues there on the site. So if we catch it before it goes into our storm drain system at the plant, we route it back behind the plant, and it should make things better. It's a project that we've been looking at and talking about for quite some time.
I remember we did a big study on it years ago.
Yes, we did.
And so it was based on some of those recommendations.
Okay. Maybe afterwards I can just look at it and see what you're trying to show me, so I know what I'm looking at. 'Cause
Sure, yeah.
it doesn't quite make sense. Sounds like it's going through the parking lot, and now we're going to try to route it around, but.
Well, there's it's not going into any system. It's basically just flooding into the site, but we want to capture it and pipe it so that it goes around and doesn't go through the site and flood the site from that side.
Yeah.
We have enough problems coming from the run.
Okay.
So the request is for modification to task order 18, and then to add some additional funding into task order 21.
And Rebecca, this is your recommendation.
Well, separately, we'll talk about the task order for the expansion project, so the bigger task order that's there on the table. Ultimately, the final expense for the expansion is going to be dictated by the construction bid. All we can do is estimate what that total project is going to cost. So, we've already discussed how the ARPA money is now available to help us pay for part of the expansion. And so there's no reason to not approve this because we're worried about funding it. It just has to be done. And then when the construction bids come in, is where more of the work happens to try to figure out what the funding is and how it's going to affect impact fees going forward. Because ultimately, that project will be paid for by impact fees on new development. So, yes, it takes cash now for us to advance fund this, but it's just a small part of the overall project. The other task order, obviously, the current operating budget has a small amount for professional services, not this much, but over the course of a year, we don't really know how it's going to play out. So normally a budget amendment wouldn't be necessary until the end of a fiscal year if it looks like the whole department is overexpended. So there's really no reason for me to say you shouldn't approve it.
Right.
It's just a matter of managing through the course of the fiscal year out of it.
Okay. Other
We
comments,
hope
questions?
to get out to bid. When?
End of January.
Good.
Put it out to bid.
We hope.
All right, I move to approve task orders 18 and 21 for GHD in the amount of $172,800 and $25,000 respectively.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Comments, questions?
Do we have, has MDE reviewed any of this yet? Have they?
No, but they're not providing funding for this project, so it's not an ENR, it's
So they wouldn't have to review the expansion for re-permitting?
They've seen the documents twice already, so they'll see the final, but I don't think they're gonna get into, I guess it depends upon what section of MD we're talking about. If it's the wastewater group, then us doing some of these modifications, they were actually in the meeting. We were talking about the flood events, and Saeed was saying, raise the walls, Jeff.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah,
he was
they've
already
done
saying, do it.
Gotcha.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe, yes. I was gonna say, y'all don't have to,
You can take your,
yeah,
I'll hang around, but yeah.
okay.
thank you. Thanks, Ashton. He has a better voice than Jeff anyway. His accent. Okay, the next item is the Slice House liquor license letter of support for expanded outdoor seating. I had a drawing attached in your packet. Ken Held had recently purchased a parcel behind his existing business and has added additional picnic tables. He would be on the liquor board agenda this week and is requesting a letter of support to serve alcohol at those tables. It is fenced in and directly behind the current Slice House on Lawrence Avenue.
Any comments, questions?
Nope. And this is all on his property?
Yes.
All right, I move to approve a liquor license letter of support for the Slice House for an expanded outdoor seating area behind their existing store at 41565 Park Avenue.
I'll second.
Motion and second, further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, thank you.
The next item is Social Coffee House, letter of support for liquor license transfer and outdoor seating at the Duke Building. So Social will be relocating to the Duke Building and adding a coffee roasting business. And they need to be on the liquor board agenda to transfer their license from their location on Fenwick Street to the Duke Building. And they're also requesting some changes to the outdoor seating that has been at that building previously, trying to open up the corner, the sidewalks a little bit and not have quite as much seating on the sidewalk, but to try to mirror what we've done on the other end of Washington Street. It would utilize one ADA accessible one ADA handicap space on Washington Street, and I did a little sketch to show you what we would propose. That parking space is non-conforming already, and we would like to do something with that anyway. There would still be 2 or 3 spaces in front of Yvonne Aries' location, and then we had added a handicap space up in front of the parkette. So we would do a shared loading area and do 2 handicap spaces there, so we would still have 2 right in that vicinity. And then the request is for 2 of the parallel spaces on Fenwick Street and building a platform to raise it up to the same height as the sidewalk. to serve that side of the business. It does meet the guidelines that we had adopted. And Sean is here if you have any questions. And he does a nice presentation to show you what it would look like.
What kind of time frame are you looking at, Sean? Have you any idea?
Hopefully January.
Okay.
It's a lot of work to do.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of work inside that needs to be done.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I wanted to say that before, after that fiasco from this past year, I guess, that we've been dealing with, I wanted to make sure there weren't any issues. So I went out and I talked to Ebon, and I showed him your sketch, and I showed him Lachelle's sketch, and he was fine. So I thought that was good. I also reached out to the fire department to see if they had any comments, and they have some concerns about the parking on Fenwick Street. And I kind of thought they had some reasonable concerns because, all of a sudden they were like, that's where their fire trucks come when they go to a call, and they go shooting straight down Fenwick Street on that side of the road. And, I've been at outdoor seating with my kids, and I'm sure, you guys have been around, and kids tend to jet out really quickly, and I would hate for someone to get hit on that side of the road. So I don't know if anybody has any thought on that, but Sean, before you spend a lot of money building a platform, if it's something that we're going to ask you to remove, I thought we should know about it.
No, it's absolutely a valid concern. I have some valid concerns as well as the on the shooting down Fenwick Street. It's not Route 5 anymore. Fortunately, we have a lot of pedestrians and a lot of people visiting the town. I would like to see Route 5 utilized more, unless Riken or one of the apartments, that there's an actual concern on Fenwick Street. I was actually talking to somebody from the fire department the other day. I don't know what concerns the fire department truly has with people that, because it would be parked cars there. No matter what, there would be no, those spaces that we're talking about in the seating, it's where cars would be parked. So if there's an issue with anything, it would be hitting the car. It's okay for people to parallel park there and exit their vehicle into the lane of traffic. There's car doors open into the lane of traffic. There's just a number of concerns with anybody, not just fire trucks or emergency vehicles flying down Fenwick Street heading south, but it's actually anyone reported to the fire department to go. A lot of people go flying up north towards the fire department, and I would just, as a concerned citizen, with anyone, any pedestrians walking across Plain Frogger on Fenwick Street, what exactly time savings is there by the fire engine ripping down Fenwick Street to report to a call versus exiting out on Route 5 where the traffic signal is already in place? And if there is a time savings, let's say it's a 10-second savings on the call, is that 10 seconds worth of potential issue with a pedestrian in town? We're trying to make it a more walkable town, so we need to consider how that flow is working. So yes, I do definitely think that shooting comment that you made is definitely a concern.
And I can't respond to that because I don't know.
I'm just telling you, you asked, and I definitely agree.
Well, let me just give you a little background here. I mean, when the seating was a concern, we looked at state regulations, and there's 12 feet on each lane right now, and it can go down to 10 feet with still being in state regulations. But yes, I mean, I know there's concern. Mr. Manning, I know your son is looking at the possibility of y'all moving. Can you give us a background there or a little update on that?
Well, we have an active long-term planning committee right now that's working. Considerations are additions, modifications to the building we're in now, and staying there. The other alternative is to try to find a piece of property that fits our demands, our needs in the right location, and consider relocating. But it's still in the preliminary stand at this point. we have not been able to find any property yet that would be suitable to maintain the response times and the access to the firehouse, that's available around town. So it's pretty limited. But, we're looking at that, if anything were to happen, we'd probably be 3 to 5 years at least. We may end up, expanding the facility we're in now and staying there. What we're running into now is the changes that we're experiencing in maintaining our equipment, turnout gear, bunk rooms, all of those things that come into play as we try to keep up with the pace of the increased volume of calls that we're having. We're running over 700 calls a year now, and that has been a significant increase. So we're looking at that, but it's still in the very preliminary standing. Our concerns with the sidewalk seating along Fenwick Street, if we were to try to go out, and we have to go out Lawrence Avenue to go north, and we go that way to go to Hollywood. The problem we're having now, as you've seen on Route 5, the increased traffic, both lanes are blocked from the signal many times all the way down to Lawrence Avenue. It forces us to have to go into oncoming traffic in order to get through that intersection, because there's no place for those cars to go. They're there. It's dangerous for us, and if we increase that, it's going to increase more of an opportunity for us to have some type of unfortunate accident with somebody. That's why we use Fenwick Street to go out of town. It speeds up our response time and not having to deal with the traffic on Route 5. I mean, Lawrence Avenue is one of the reasons that we're even talking about relocating, because of the increased traffic and the difficulties we're having in the out of town there. But we talked about this some last night when we became aware of the desire to take some of the parking places on Fenwick Street. We are very, very strongly opposed to that, because we think it would increase the opportunity for an unfortunate accident, either a car running through it and hitting somebody, not necessarily a fire truck, but a vehicle. The same concerns we expressed about the other location where we had one incident already. We think it's tight going through there with the apparatus. You've got the stop sign that now is placed in the middle of the street, and it just makes a tight exit for us to get out of town, quite frankly. And so we would be very concerned about that and the danger it may place to people that would be sitting along the highway. If that answers your question. So, and by the way, down in front of your house, it used to be 2 feet of water in the ocean bar down there 50 years ago.
Oh, really? Well, there's nothing down there now.
And any questions about where we are at the firehouse? We're just seeing more and more demands every day. It's challenging for us now. Responding to the firehouse, getting there. And I'll give you an example. Some of you might remember the house in Leonard's Grant that burned a few years ago. That call, when it came out, 10 minutes and that house was fully involved. So minutes count, seconds count, and we pride ourselves in providing professional service as a volunteer organization. But the construction that we're seeing today is right to burn. Luckily, the new sprinkler ordinance is helping a lot. But just the lightning strike we had out there a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago, that could have been a serious fire. But we happened to be on the road, and we were able to get there within a couple of minutes. But that could have been a serious fire. You saw the firefighter that was killed up in, I think it was Hartford, Cecil County, where he fell through the floor. These houses are built to burn, and we do our best, but 10 minutes, and one of those houses is going. If there's any questions, we'd like to share our thoughts with you about what's going on with the traffic in town. We have concerns, and I, as a resident, have concerns with the changes that are taking place right there with Washington Street and Fenwick Street. We're seeing people. It's difficult to see cars coming around the park. With all the head-in parking, you can't see in front. And I saw one just in is if they're coming around fast and they're running on through there because they think they have the right of way, which they do, I mean, all of a sudden they're there. And you could be starting off to pull through that, and, you know, there's concerns there as a resident, not the fire department necessarily, but that's a blind spot for the parking is.
We did just recently add a mirror there, so that should help. And we're actually,
We
did
have
you?
a new one that's
New
gonna
one's
be
coming,
better.
so.
It's really dangerous. It's set up right now with the way the parking is
Yeah.
planned out in there. And, but that's our concern about the parking on the street, on the street. You know, we have serious concerns about that from a safety standpoint.
I did, you know, I sent Tommy 5 or 6 places along Route 5, and I actually just thought of a couple more, so I'll be sending those to him also. So, yep.
Yeah. We're meeting once a month on that long-range plan, but it's still pretty things.
Sure.
So how many calls, you can maybe say 50%, well, how many do you have to go through town versus going through Lawrence Avenue, about?
I don't have that number.
No idea.
I couldn't say.
Gotcha. Just wondering.
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to do some research to that number.
Okay.
It's a fair amount.
Probably a third.
Third, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, that's all, I was just like, kind
north.
of a roundabout. Okay.
East and south for.
Probably half, I suppose. Third to
Any other questions?
We certainly appreciate.
The department that would be more than glad to answer your questions.
Well, we appreciate everything y'all do. So thank you.
Thank you. And, well, never mind. We'll talk about something else later on.
Okay.
Not today, but another.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, by the way.
So I guess Tommy or Kevin, if a number of the businesses have the planters, you've seen them, versus Sean, you have the barrels, would that make any bit of difference if he had removed, let's say just for example, he didn't have the barrels, he had the planters. I mean, granted, it's probably just a couple inches at the most, but would that make any bit of a difference, or is that?
The planners, the more and more of that stuff that's being placed around the park, for example, the more and more that impedes, if we have an incident in one of the buildings downtown, you know, the Duke building or any of the buildings up towards Sweet Bay.
Sure.
Because, for example, the ladder truck is, besides the width of the truck, if you have to set that up, it has outriggers that go out about 4 feet. So it takes a lot of space to set that up and to put it operational. The second thing that we're having some concerns about is the turning radius of the trucks. And we can make the turn, for example, at the end down by the old First National Bank, because of the way the parking is set up there. So it's challenging for us to maneuver the large equipment into some of those areas like that. You know, the planners, for example, could impede us putting a jack out, the jack that stabilizes the truck. So those kind of things, you have to be very cautious where you're putting them, because they can impede setting up those vehicles if we have an incident in town. Luckily, we've been very fortunate. You know, Town Inn was the last one, but you know, it can happen any day, and we need to be prepared for that, and we need to think about that when we're doing the planning. It's just like some of the fire hydrants that have been placed in town. There needs to be a little more planning sometimes with some of them. And, you know, you all probably don't remember it, the mayor does. George Duke used to be very engaged in that, and he's dead and gone now. We don't have anybody that's really following that kind of stuff. You know, strategically placing fire hydrants and those kinds of things, thinking about what it takes to set the apparatus up for an incident. It's all very important in the planning when you're improving, you know, a project or, you know, like the planners and stuff like that.
And I will say that, you know, we just recently did away with the parking on the end of the square, the circular side, because of that concerns. Yeah. Well,
Some rebels.
people will park there, but yeah, we do have no parking there. Plus, where we have the planters, we've moved them in some, and we've actually got them sitting on 2x4s, so we can easily move them. But we did move them in so you'd have enough room for the trucks with the you know,
And we
to put
space
the,
them apart as well, so
Yeah.
they're only 3 feet, so we do have space in between each one. They wouldn't have to move far. And we do still submit our plans to the fire department for review.
Who gets them?
I'd have to check with Jada who they get sent to now. I want to say your son, maybe.
Yeah.
No? I thought it was. I'll check with her. But we do still have them going to someone at the firehouse for a review.
Could you let me know who they're going? Okay, thank you.
One comment on.
To get back to the answer to your question as far as those planters and stuff, if there's a vehicle that comes through there, those planters are really not gonna do much. I mean, if you're sitting on the other side of the planter, you might as well just call it a day. So.
I would like to say that now that it's getting dark so early, that we could do something to make the planters more reflective, and Sean's barrels too, because gets dark at what, 5:30 now, and people are still out walking. I mean, I walk a lot in the evening when I get home from work, and it's dark, and it would be nice to those planters and the barrels. I mean, they blend right into the concrete. So if there's a way we can put some reflectors, that would be really great, I think.
Just to follow up, nothing that I've proposed actually extends anywhere beyond any sidewalk or, parking space. It doesn't extend into the roadway at all. If anything, I think this seating arrangement is safer than my current one. As people traveling from south or east, whatever you call it, towards downhill on Fenwick Street. Once again, we had talked about how to control traffic and get people to slow down coming up the raceway, the hill straightaway. And any traffic mitigation for making things safer for pedestrians was knocked down, as it would either impede snow removal or it would be too loud for residents, rumble strips, or it would interfere with emergency vehicles. So I don't know what ideas anyone else has come up with as far as how to try to make it safer to walk in town, but the direction you would be traveling going the opposite way past our seating area, I would assume someone leaving an intersection would be going much slower, navigating, and I will agree, it's turned into a little bit of a cluster at that intersection now. And you cannot, if cars are parked along the inside of the square, you cannot, mirror or not, it's very difficult to see a vehicle coming until they're right there already. So I really would recommend putting a stop sign back on Washington Street right there, making it a three-way stop. But navigating that intersection, I would think would be much safer, and cars would be much slower going around that seating area than, on the other side.
no, and I agree with that. It would be safer on the Duke's building, because they're, not coming up that hill.
Still working in, Michelle, and the whole crosswalk and extending that sidewalk down at the end of where we currently are anyway. So, last time this whole issue came up about safety, I think it's almost a year ago, about the width of the road and the barrel and how far it sticks out into the road, and that's where Dan mentioned about the width of the roadway. The width of the lane of the road right now, currently, from our seating area, the barrels to the center lane, is the same exact lane width as 495, as Route 5. It is the same width of any state highway. The MDOT report that Dan had mentioned, that they had done a study on municipalities that are having issues with cars and pedestrians, and they found that the narrower you reduce your lane width, the safer it actually makes ultimately. They had way few traffic incidents when they actually narrowed the roadway and made it, make people pay attention. Now, I understand that may pose some issues and concerns to the fire department. I'm just stating that down to a 10-foot lane width is what the Maryland MDOT recommended for any municipality having traffic concerns, to make the lanes narrower. So there's a lot of things that we can look into in regards to all this stuff. But as far as what I've proposed, we are just trying to occupy the same same exact area that a car, if it had been parked there sitting all day, would be consuming. That if it's okay for a car to park there, I would hope that it would be okay for, you know, a vehicle, emergency vehicle, anything to pass by. That we would not be any further out than a car.
I think the difference for me is that, you know, as a parent, if I'm walking along with my children or my dog, I'm walking, you know, I'm paying attention, and not that I'm not paying attention at other times, but, you know, I'm really careful with what's going on. You know, the kids aren't going to jump out between two parked cars, because I'm right there, I'm watching, I know what we're doing. If I'm sitting there, you know, having a drink, and I'm having some hors d'oeuvres or something, and I'm having a nice time, you know, the kids are going to slip away from me and go right through. That to me is the difference, honestly, between, I agree with you, with the parked car versus but you're not going to have somebody sitting next to a parked car having a drink, having a conversation, not paying attention to your children.
On concerns of the fire department or any vehicle passing through side of things, like as far as that concern. There's plenty of concerns, there's a lot of risk involved in everything, and I'm more than happy to talk about any of them. Just simply saying the same thing that we're doing in other areas of town. We're just we're not doing anything crazy. We're just replicating the same thing that we've been working on for the past 2 years now with the restructuring.
Can somebody refresh my memory? I believe it was October 4th of 2020. There was a YouTube video where there was something posted on Facebook about a vehicle running into some barrels in Fenwick Street.
Well, that's what, that's what Tommy mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it can happen, right? It has happened. Hopefully that was the last time it happened.
Sure.
You know, and thankfully no one got it.
The difference, and you know, right now, and I think the gentleman mentioned, it's a challenge now, just getting out of your car on that street. You know, you gotta be careful, and, you know, the difference is if you're opening a car door, or somebody has an incident there with a vehicle, what's the difference between that or 20 or 25 people sitting on the side of the street and a vehicle running into them? You know, I'd rather see them run into a car than run into a group of people sitting out there having a great time and cleaning themselves out of that environment. It's just more dangerous when you put all of those people on the side of the street. I think it's dangerous where the existing place is, and I think that is the same thing happening up there by the Duke building. If you put people sitting on the side of the street, you know, and God forbid that that did happen, and just you mentioned children and everything. You know, they just had a search party just the other night for somebody wandering away. The child over to Drum Cliffs that going down to Hollywood Shores that walked out and drowned. I mean, it happens so quickly, and that's all we're thinking about is the people. We don't want to see people hurt in our town. We want to see them come to town and enjoy themselves.
So, Sean, sorry.
No, you're good. No, go ahead.
Just had a quick question for you. So the presentation that you gave us, the bump out that's in front of the Duke building, I know you talked about you weren't planning to put a number of tables out there, but is there any potential that you could take the 4 tables off those 2 spots and put them out there? Is that an option for you? Would you rather?
I'm sorry, not following where. Take the 4 tables from where?
So that's
Along
on Fenwick Street, yeah, on the 2 spots that you have proposed right now. Take those tables and put them out on the bump out, on the existing sidewalk. That's right in front of the main
I mean,
doors.
you've got 2 crosswalks that enter that space, and I'm trying to make sure that anything that we suggest doesn't impede on the flow of especially handicapped people.
Right, and that would be the only issue is obviously we need to make it enough space so it's ADA compliant. But that was the only option I was thinking of was just, you know.
I mean, I didn't really think about that because all of our conversations. I mean,
well, it's just an option. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I
I'm just
mean, it
trying to
looks
see
like
if
I
there's-
drew little. I was about to say the same thing, so it was good timing. But it looks like I just drew little circles where tables could go with plenty of walking space in between. I mean, that's kind of what that area was meant for.
Because you could still get all of your tables.
so are you suggesting not have any seating on Fenwick?
Right, and move them onto that
It might be,
larger.
you know, and for the fire department is maybe.
Cafe, when they were in there, had tables out.
we're not suggesting that we don't want to put tables out.
No.
My suggestion is, because we've also, it's not just the Dos Amigos space, we're using the bookstore space,
Yeah.
the whole building, which also we've been working as close as possible with Michelle and the town on the alleyway. And it's a connection between, when we have the seating area in the alleyway, it's a connection between the location and according to the guidelines that was passed. We're just simply asking for the space. We've got the bookstore, we've got the alleyway, and we've got the Washington Street, and we're trying to connect it and make it all one really nice area that we're all, like I said last meeting, as far as this town restructuring plan and trying to get people to, like I said, I could fill the room up if we wanted to on all the people that really love this outdoor seating. And we're just trying to tie in with the entire plan of what we're doing here. And me personally, I would much rather see a really nicely done seating area along that strip on Fenwick Street, especially since, as you probably can tell, maybe not on, I'm not sure, I'd have to look at it either. The rooftop area that's right above the bookstore as well. So it's just all part of the plan. So yeah, I didn't really look at how we can not utilize that space.
No, that's understandable. And again, I'm not advocating to take any seating away from you. We're only looking at this as just, under the circumstances, is there any way we could, you could add a couple tables out on the bump out and then maybe put a couple more, in that alleyway.
That sounds like a great
Yeah,
idea.
and then eliminate.
Just, it might.
Yeah,
No.
However, last month I was here, and I to fight to keep our seating area, and we set a date of January to move. That's kind of, my hand was forced by a couple of the council members in order to do it. I have done that. I'm trying to work with the town and make my move and relocate in order to accommodate not only what works for our business, but also what follows the town restructuring plan that you guys have put, and bought into. Along Fenwick Street, I'm sorry, I just don't see any reason why I would want to not do what I've put forth in that plan.
Sure, and I'm just trying to throw an idea out there that maybe could work for you, maybe could work for the fire department. It's not a perfect scenario, but
no
it's.
more seating on Fenwick Street anymore?
Can I make a recommendation? So, absolutely, I think Sean has talked to all the businesses down there. They think it draws people down there to I think that the activity on Fenwick Street. I had seen a picture, what if we moved the seating, the tables against the wall by where the sidewalk is, and if we were able to have a barricade like the planters to form a walkway on out, and kind of flipped it, like had the cement planters to make the walkway. We would have to work with transitions for ADA.
Sorry to cut you off, Michelle. I actually sent Michelle
Right.
a picture of this. I don't know how often you guys visit other towns, and I've not witnessed what other towns on their outdoor seating has done in order to communicate with the fire and all this stuff to make everyone happy. I was visited by probably going to be our next state comptroller. She came down and visited me a couple months ago and had heard what we had done with the outdoor seating, and she was instrumental in doing that up at Fed Hill. That was her district, and just talked about how great this area has done with outdoor seating, just like they did on Fed Hill. And when you see all these other areas, they've either put their seating right on the street, just like we're doing here, or they've, like Michelle just mentioned, they moved it in and actually create a sidewalk around the seating area so that the tables are up against the building and the pedestrian walkway actually goes along the side of the street. There's a number of different ways to.
I think we could do that very
utilize,
easily there.
the space, it's, I don't mind working around it, trying to figure out the best way of going about it.
Sure.
I think we hear it all the time, the outdoor seating. I mean, I've had people beg, don't take it away, you know, I mean, it
Right,
really
and I
doesn't
don't think,
work.
yeah, and I don't think what we were kind of talking about was taking anything away. It was just relocating
But
them to areas that
I have a
already had
picture,
curbs.
Yeah, I mean, I have a picture of what Sean had sent, but I can very easily see just forming the concrete barricade all the way down, and you have this, the pedestrian way is to the outside and the seating is to the inside. I think it would work very well there.
So would,
It would take some modifications, but I think it would be easily done.
And just what we're thinking, after the last meeting, every single retail business, especially actually on the side of the Duke building, every single one of them came to me after the last meeting, worried that actually the seating is going away, heard that we were moving, upset that the seating was going away, and offered, every single one of them offered their space in front of their buildings for us to have seating, every single one. So everybody loves this stuff. It helps the other businesses out in that area. It just, I really think, and I mentioned it to a couple of you guys that actually took the time to talk to me, we have to figure out exactly if we're buying into this restructuring plan, if this is the way we want to move things forward, there's going to be a lot of growing pains in it. If we understand where we want to get to and we just are all working together on it, I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. But if we're relitigating stuff about, I mean, Sweet Bay got their outdoor seating and built that pad out almost 2 years ago. I didn't hear any of this back then. So we're just trying to, you know, the restructuring plan was fresh in everyone's minds. We wanted to do this. So we're just trying to keep moving forward with that plan. I've worked pretty closely with Michelle on coming up with this entire little slideshow.
I really think we could make it safer that way. I think it could work very well.
so would there have to be, I mean, to get people around that, would there, I mean, are we gonna widen the sidewalk? I guess.
That's what I was gonna ask too, is are we gonna extend that bump out maybe halfway, not all the way to the line, but
I don't think we'd have to do that. We may have to put a ramp down. Just gonna show you what I'm thinking. So if we would, so if we just did a barricade here, concrete barricade, and so the tables move over here again on the sidewalk, and then there would be a little ramp here that would go down, and they could go, and we could have a ramp back up in here. So the sidewalk just goes around the table.
is there any chance we could, just so it gives a little more clearance on the actual road itself, could we, you know, make that bump out just come about halfway versus all the way to the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think there'd be a little bit of modification there,
Okay.
but we could,
So-
I think it's very easily done.
Sure, okay. Just so it makes
I think
it,
that would make it a lot safer. It's not gonna be any different than any other
right,
sidewalk.
that way, Sean, you could get your tables out there, and at the same time, you know,
Your
I mean,
buffer
Kevin, you know,
too.
for the fire department, I mean,
I have a
is
picture
that,
I can forward to you guys to
is that
see,
something that
too.
would make it a little bit more feasible
I
for
haven't
you
seen
all,
what
or?
you're- I haven't seen what you're talking about,
Okay.
so I'm not.
Well, and I'm just thinking, you know, you have those parallel spots, if we made a bump out that did not go all the way up to that line, but maybe halfway through, you know, is that kind of like a middle ground that maybe would help you out at least a little bit, you know, is that something feasible for you all?
I mean, that's gonna be the same as any sidewalk. I mean,
Sure,
you know.
right,
I mean, I haven't seen, I'd have to see a visual of what you're talking about.
of course.
When the cafe was there, they had a number of tables out on the sidewalk on the, I guess it's the Washington Street
Right.
side. And, I mean, I don't understand why, if you want outdoor seating, it fits into what's going on that whole row of buildings with Sweet Bay and the other places there that put outdoor seating. And keep it all around on that side where you have parking that would impede anybody from running over top of a bunch of people, instead of over on a place that has heavy traffic. You look every day, just when I came here today, traffic in town from the school that's coming in town and the increased traffic coming into town. The town has got a solid flow, and those kids at school, they don't pay any attention to that 25-mile-an-hour speed limit down there. They're coming on into town going home, and we have traffic that's backed up all the way from the Birchmart stoplight all the way down through town.
Right.
And it's just a heavy volume of traffic through there that's higher speeds, and if you put it around on the Washington Street side
which has got a wider sidewalk already, put it around there and be happy with it, especially if he's talking about all the other outdoor seating that he's gonna add on the balcony up there and in the alleyway and all that. I mean, how much do you need? He's increasing his capacity. Excuse me, I'm speaking to sir. He's increasing his capacity in the restaurant 4 or 5 times what he's got now. And it's great that he's successful, but public safety is our whole message. We're worried about putting people out on that street. And that's why the department last night asked me to come to the meeting today. Gary's working, that president, he couldn't do it. I'm a correspondence secretary, a past chief, and a past president, and a bunch of other credentials if you want credentials. But we are concerned about traffic on that street and people sitting out on the side of the street.
No, we're glad you're here, and I appreciate you being here. I know from Sean's point, he had made the comment that obviously if you try to get too many tables in there, it has to be ADA compliant. Want to make sure those, handicap wheelchairs, they can get through there. They're not constantly, hitting everybody trying to get in and out. So that was, one issue. Obviously, if it was even bigger, then maybe you could get 4 or 5 tables in there, no issues. But I don't think that's feasible at the moment. So.
And I also have 4 to 5 times the overhead in that new building.
A significant investment.
I'm not trying to go through my entire business plan, but.
And I think we're gonna be running into this. Let me just say something, Sean. So, I mean, there is another business on Fenwick Street. He is having a separate business on Fenwick Street. We're gonna have this issue if we have other businesses come on Fenwick Street. Are we gonna say no tables on Fenwick Street to any business when we know the benefit? And, I mean, let's figure out how we make it safer. It's the same speed limit. I mean, I think if we reversed it and put a barricade there, it would be much safer. And it's gonna be the same as in any other street where you have a sidewalk right there.
So when you say barricade, are you talking the planters?
Yeah, we could do a consistent row
Okay.
of the concrete barricades.
Okay. Yeah.
And you're not gonna have tables sitting right there.
Yeah, I like it. I like it against the wall with the open sidewalk. But however, back to the point earlier, I do feel more comfortable with the speed limit going towards Riken than I did having where your current social coffee house is. Because I mean, we've all seen cars
Right.
just fly up the hill.
With that and the
way.
stop signs,
Yeah.
they have to stop there.
Yeah,
They're
they're not
just
going to hit
starting.
those speeds.
I mean, I think there's a way to do it to make it a lot safer. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, just on the Duke Street, on the Duke corner, that side is safer than on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
without doubt. Plus, the guidelines call for allowing for on-street parking as long as the building owner gives that permission. And we're only looking at 3 spaces
I think,
for this building. We've given 4 spaces to other people.
we talked about the guidelines, and the guidelines as of now say that you have to close the outdoor seating as of October 31st. So what's the winter setup that you have in here?
Actually, you guys discussed last meeting about having a conversation about it.
Right.
But we haven't yet.
Changed, yeah.
So, if we're gonna go with the guidelines, then we probably.
Well, I think that's gonna be uniform across the board.
It's just, that's what we're suggesting.
I mean, it's gonna be the same for anybody. His seating will be the same as,
You guys
if you
just-
take it away in the winter time, it's gonna be everyone.
I think you would have a lot of people push back on saying we're out for seeing past October 31st.
We already are, actually. If that's the direction we're gonna go.
So this is it 2 spaces along Fenwick?
2 spaces on Fenwick and 1 ADA space on Washington.
I'd be curious to see how that would work. I certainly, I'm certainly not opposed to doing the sidewalk, but I don't think that that's a decision I could make at today's meeting. So, I mean, I would definitely move to do the liquor license letter of support for the building, because I absolutely want you to be able to get in there and get operational. I don't know that I would do the extension of premises until we figure out more of how this is all gonna shake out. That's my thought.
I would say that if you've ever sat through the process, going back again, we sat there for 4 hours the last time just to do the Jazz Fest. And it is a
Well-
long day.
Plus, I mean, he's gonna have outdoor seating, so even if it's on the sidewalk. So you need to give him outdoor seating also.
Well, it says
Yeah.
outdoor seating to include the sidewalk, 188 parking space on Washington Street and 2 parking spaces on Fenwick. So I guess we could do the outdoor seating to include the sidewalk and the 88 parking space on Washington Street and not do the spaces on Fenwick now?
Well, I
Can we
guess
just-
my question is, let's just put it all outdoor seating, and then, I mean, it's gonna be January before he even gets over there, so we've got a little
Well,
time.
when he goes to the liquor board, he has to specify what tables.
Yeah, and I would add, the liquor board, that presentation mainly was for the liquor board. For you guys, I would suggest not looking at where the actual tables are, that was just put together to show, for a number of reasons. But for what you guys, I think, are concerned about, I would look at the actual just area that it is taking up, and if it means, like I said, Michelle is absolutely amazing at working with all of the businesses, and, it just, trying to continue that relationship, I would definitely want to keep that, and whatever, if it's moving the sidewalk to the, doing whatever to make it work, I would not have any reason to go against Michelle because you guys decided, to pass something based on where a table was sitting. I'm not opposed to moving it at a later date or putting a sidewalk where the pedestrians are routed along Fenwick Street and the tables are against. We can move stuff around to suit whatever. It's more that just that area that it's encompassing is what I think is ultimately.
Now, as far as the liquor board, does something have to be presented showing where the tables are gonna be? Okay.
And that meeting wouldn't be until November.
I mean, not necessarily like if it was flipped with the tables against the building,
Right.
but taking those 2 parking spaces. I mean, what if you let the process happen with the liquor board and we bring back a drawing with what we could do on Fenwick Street?
Unfortunately, I mean, Sean, with your history, I have a hard time believing that because, we're going to approve it and then you're going to come in and bring in 12 of your restaurant staff and we're going to have the Judge Judy show again. I mean, at this point, I just want to, let's go with the plan as is and then without the Fenwick Street.
I didn't realize bringing my employees to show you guys some cases of decisions that you made and how it impacts actual real people was a Judge Judy show. I would just ask you to look at what we've done for all the other businesses, look at how the guidelines that you guys have, town restructuring plan, understand that all the massive amount of real residential areas that have been popping up in town, how much people are enjoying walking in and out of town, and just accept, the traffic we have to look at it. We have to figure out how to make it safer for people to walk in town. That's not changing.
So-
people are gonna continue walking and continue wanting to enjoy the space and social, I hope Michelle agrees, we always work as much as we can with anything that we can. I'm always in communication, trying to do what we can to make things work, so.
So I'm gonna make a motion. I feel like we set up the guidance for the outdoor seating. I mean, you met it, you moved buildings, and I don't want to change the finish line. So I'm gonna make the motion I move to approve a liquor license letter of support for the transfer of Social Coffee House's existing Class B liquor license to 41655 Fenwick Street, along with outdoor seating to include the sidewalk and 188 parking space on Washington Street and 2 parking spaces on Fenwick Street.
We have a motion. We have
Can we make this motion with the stipulation that we can come back with a drawing showing, maybe a extended bump out, maybe not all the way to the line, but with your tables pushed up against the wall? can we put that within this motion, just
Sure,
so,
we
and
can amend
then
the
obviously the fire department can get a copy of that as well, so you all can see it, and then we can go from there. Is that,
And also the planters do have a means that you can actually do a bollard
Ballard,
and place the,
okay.
so we could add bollards as
Yeah,
well for
I'll
additional.
agree with the fire department on the, planners are just to make you guys feel a little bit better about it, to be honest.
But I think it's,
They're
it is
not
an
gonna
area we
stop
could
the vehicle.
put actual bollards and the planters can go right down on
So,
top of the
so
bollard.
you don't want the ballards?
No,
I mean, you don't want,
bollard.
you don't want the
Actually,
planters?
Michelle and I, we talked long, the planners have the ability to, you put the bollards into the roadway and then you set that over it. Our barrels are actually, weigh a lot more than those planters do. They're all filled with water. Each one of them weighs 640 pounds each. The planters themselves, if they're just set on 4x4 so that they're easy to move, it's okay if they're like spaced in certain areas, but they're not going to stop a vehicle going 40 miles an hour.
I think that we can design it with, between the bollards and putting the tables up next to the sidewalk, that it's gonna be a lot safer.
And that, once again, the drawings, and actually you can't click on any of the links that are in that little thing, but the platform itself that we would be putting a raised platform on Fenwick Street to bring it up level with the sidewalk. We are actually having, there's where the barrels go, that platform actually acts as a brace to the barrels. So when the barrel's in there, if this is the platform, the barrel's here. It's not sitting on top of the platform, it's up against it. So it adds another increased level of safety obviously. But
So are we putting barrels out in the street or
I'm
planters?
just saying for the sake of what I have been doing over on Fenwick Street with the barrels, whether it's planters, barrels, whatever it is, having it sit off to the side of it, not on top of the platform, so that there's actual a brace against the whatever's there. There needs to be something added to the planter itself. I personally do.
So I can, if you want to amend the motion, I can bring back a drawing for the Fenwick Street, let them proceed with the liquor board, and we can do a drawing that would make it more, safer on the Fenwick Street side and modify it.
So the final layout of the seating along Fenwick could be approved at a later date.
I mean, you would allow him to move forward with the liquor board, with the two
The three
seats, two
spaces.
parking spaces per
Okay.
our guidelines, and then I can bring a drawing back of how we can make it a more secure area.
I like that better.
So that
Okay.
would be the amended motion?
Would you
Do we need to
agree to
Oh,
amend your motion?
yeah, I
Okay.
amend the motion to that.
Okay.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion.
I don't know that I'm necessarily comfortable with it, just because, I mean, the safety of people in Leonardtown has got to be my biggest priority. So, you know, I'm curious, I'd love to see what this is gonna, what we can do on Fenwick Street. I think there's a lot of, sounds like there's some really good opportunities. And I'm really excited to get Sean in there. I mean, I'd really want him down there in the Duke building. I'm ready to let him go. But I've gotta make sure the people are safe, so.
So this motion will come back and make sure everyone's good with the safety issues.
Right, yeah, and I mean, we keep talking about the guidelines, so the guidelines are in place, but we can't also create an unsafe environment. But I think re-reviewing it before it's finally done is that component.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
3-1 carries. Thank you very much. Sure.
I just take offense to the Judge Judy comment, because if you go to the commissioners' meetings and there is a topic of a particular organization, let's say the police department and the school bus, they bring their people to discuss the battle with them. The entire police department was at County Commissioners Building. So I don't think the last town commissioner meeting here was a Judge Judy. I think it was a concern with the people who were employed.
Just for the record, could you give us your name and address?
My name is Terry Branch. My address is 22208 Andover Drive, Leonardtown Road.
Thank you. Okay,
All right.
moving on.
Next item is request from St. Mary's County Historical Society to support their funding outdoor lighting for the Tudor Hall Mansion. There is a letter in your packet. They're asking if we would be able to support them in their issue. It's very dark at Tudor Hall Mansion, and especially like at Christmas, we have the carriage rides and the sleigh rides go around there. We're working with the wayfinding signage to get people over there. I'm actually working with the county to see if they could extend the sidewalk on Courthouse Drive next to the bunker to be able to help people to walk over to Tudor Hall. So it is a big asset that we have for tourism, and they're asking if we could participate in their efforts to put some outdoor lighting. The proposal they're spending is $1,647. We do now contribute each year $750, and we also waive their utilities just like we do for the fire department and for the rescue squad.
And I've noticed just in the last couple of weeks, so many people there in the evenings looking at Maldire Rock.
Yeah, they're getting a huge following now,
Yeah.
since the rock has been moved.
Do we do donations or something in an amount to other?
We have, the last 2 years, we had budgeted contributions toward new decorations for the Christmas tree and to actually raise it ring for the fire department. So yes, we do that.
So this is permanent lighting outside,
Yes.
and is this half the total bill, or is this the whole?
No, that's the whole bill. They didn't ask for a specific amount, but if we
Okay.
would contribute anything to help them be able to afford that. They have a lot of significant modifications to the building that need to be done just to save the building, so they're just trying to improve it the best they can on a limited budget.
And these lights would shine on the building itself, not shining on
Towards the
neighbors.
homes.
Yeah, they're low voltage outdoor lights. I mean, I brought last year for Christmas on the Square floodlights from my house and put them on the building just to give it some light. We tried to decorate the whole area on Courthouse Drive along the bunker and all the way over there to give it something for people to look at when we're doing the sleigh rides and the carriage rides.
Sure.
But not just, in the winter, but that's just one example.
So we had budgeted for other events like $1,000 for, or did we use that funding somewhere else? $1,000 for Christmas, or not Christmas on the Square, the beach party.
Beach party, we have money left over that we did not utilize. We are using some of it for extra transportation for Veterans Day and for the shuttle, the trolley that we've been using for the different events, and I'm using some of the arts and entertainment money as well. But I could find money in that community development to fund if there was an amount that you wanted to contribute to it.
I was leaning toward 800, but I mean, I'm flexible to more or less if everybody has a different number.
Seems reasonable. It's
Yeah.
half.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If half. All right. Well, I move to contribute $800 to St. Mary's County Historical Society to upgrade the lighting to this historic tourism asset.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yep.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
The last agenda item is the contract for the boardwalk redecking at the wharf with S.E. Davis Construction. We had budgeted $105,061 in the FY '22 budget to replace the aging deck boards on the elevated boardwalk at the wharf. S.E. Davis has given us a price of $91,637, plus if they run into any stringers that need to be replaced, which they all look like they're in good shape, it would be $150 per stringer. They would do this work when they mobilize to do the second phase of the floating docks. We originally thought we might be able to do it with Bay Country, but they really, I can't even get them to staff putting some signs up. I mean, they're so shorthanded, they don't have any helpers, and they really aren't set up to do this kind of work anyway. So it's under budget. I would like to go ahead and move forward to get it done with S.E. Davis, who does this type of work on a regular basis. And just to add it to the contract for the second phase of the loading docks.
Rebecca, any concerns on this? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, budget and the budget.
All right, I'll move to award the boardwalk decking replacement project to S.E. Davis Construction in conjunction with the Phase 2 wharf slips project in the amount of $91,637, plus $150 per stringer that is discovered that needs to be replaced.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Just a couple little updates quickly. We did receive notice last week that we got another $20,000 grant from the Maryland State Arts Council for the artwork in the alleyway, Town Alley. So little by little chipping away at the shortage. We talked a little bit about the photo scavenger hunt that we're going to be promoting over Veterans Day weekend. So we'll be advertising that. There's 15 subjects that people can submit photos for. It should be a lot of fun and get people out and about on that over that long weekend. Also, we have a new District 5 engineer with State Highway. It's somebody, Kim Tran, who I've worked with for 20 years. She's really good, so I'm hoping it helps with communication with State Highway. So I'll be working with her. And I put an update that she sent out this weekend on the Route 5 improvements, and we are adding that to the project list on the website for people, just because we try to keep that up to date on the project as well. And then finally, I just had received an update on the electric vehicle charging station across from Good Earth in the parking lot. And they're going to be sending quarterly reports on usage, and we actually had 66 charging sessions on that during the quarter. I was surprised because I haven't seen any vehicles down there, so people are using it.
I see it all the time. 'Cause I park
Oh, that's
over
right, you're
there.
parking over there.
That's great.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Moving on to my report, I didn't make the LBA meeting the other day, but you went and gave them a presentation.
Yeah, we had a complaint the day before about parking and events, and so in talking with a couple of staff members, they weren't even familiar with the fact that we did a parking study back in 2004. That's when we purchased the additional lot where the storage building is, because we realized at some point we would want to build a parking garage down the road, and we had it kind of initially designed in that parking study that it could fit on those two parking lots there, a 3-story garage. Whether that's the location we would do or not. We also talked about that we do collect parking fees in lieu for businesses who, for redevelopment of buildings that can't provide parking, and there's a change in use, and that money is set aside. Rebecca tracks that separately, and that goes into a fund for a future parking garage. So just trying to educate that we are working on parking. We have plenty of parking, as the study showed back in 2004. It's really the same old problem, getting people to the parking and utilizing it better. So the wayfinding signage also will help with that. That should be coming out in the next week or two. It's in production right now. That's going to help a lot, especially for people who aren't familiar with the town and be able to drive and easily get to parking. Also working on a new parking map that we'll be able to put on the website and Facebook and use for different events. And then, of course, the Town Alley is going to be a huge benefit to the whole parking area that we have back there, and getting people who want to park back there, and to show them that it's a very easy walk to Fenwick or Washington Street. So just gave them a little history of that and kind of showed what we've been doing on parking.
Okay, moving on to council reports. Tyler, events.
All right, a really good turnout for the Taste of St. Mary's on September 11th. Robbie Booth performed on September 18th at the Port of Leonardtown Winery. And then Latrice Carr performed at the Port of Leonardtown Winery this past Saturday. Both well-attended events. We're continuing the virtual programming series with the North End Gallery Learn and Share series. The second class taught titled Watercolor on Fabric. And then all Learn and Share virtual classes are free and open to the public. Volunteers are needed for the plans underway for the traditional fall and holiday events in Leonardtown. We're looking for volunteer assistance to help with activities leading up to and on the days of the event. Volunteer ages are 16 and up. For more information, you can download the volunteer application on the Visit Leonardtown, Maryland website. The Antique Power Tractor Parade was on this past Sunday. I saw Nick, you attended. And then we have Trick or Treat on the Square October 23rd, followed by the Veterans Day Parade November 11th. Christmas on the Square November 26th. And then meet and greet with Santa on December 14th and 18th. So we're getting to that time of the season where all the events are coming back. But that was it for me.
And she didn't put on here, the Amish Outlaws are going to be in town Saturday.
Yep.
So the warm-up end is at 3 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock is the Amish Outlaws. And the upper square is closed down, extended seating for some of the restaurants. Should be a big crowd.
Yeah. Okay, Nick, Community Development and Planning.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Really the only thing I had to report, for anyone who's driven on Hollywood Road, State Highway's been working out there, just resurfacing, repaving part of the road. Just take it slow. Please be cautious, there's a lot of cones and such out, but they're hopefully, maybe by the end of the week they'll be finished. We'll keep our fingers crossed, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's everything I have. Thank you.
Okay. And we did get the update on the Route 5, and they do have a engineer. Kim Tran is actually the acting engineer for our territory now, so that's good. We haven't had him one for a while. So okay, Christy, utilities.
I don't really have anything. I did have a question with all the outdoor seating, if we are going to start looking at this as year-round versus temporary impacts to the EDUs and the flow to the treatment plant. I mean,
We do monitor it.
adding that many
We just met with the
seats.
health department recently, and we looked at all of them, and
No issues?
No.
Okay, we'll just have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
That's because I know in the county, outdoor seats are considered seats, so it's all one
Yeah,
permit.
we had a long meeting with the health department. I had a long meeting with the health department, and we talked through it. And I had gone through all the restaurants and checked the EDUs, and everyone they were happy with it because the health department does monitor them.
Good. Yeah, and I know things are still weird with COVID, but we just probably keep an eye on it as things hopefully start opening back up.
Okay, and as I mentioned, Jay was at the MML meeting this morning, and then another meeting today, so that's why he's not with us. So, okay, Mary, Business Development and Retention.
Thank you, Mayor. So I got to go first Friday and go to Antoinette's and sit outside, or I didn't sit outside, I sat inside, but then I got to walk around outside. It was a fantastic turnout, and I sat in the swings for a long time. The lights are out, though, around the swings.
Okay.
So it was very dark. But other than that, it was fantastic. The new building owner has done some fantastic improvements to the Rex, so I'm hoping to get a tour of that here soon. The LBA Marketing Committee has some great ideas coming up for the holiday season, so I'm really excited about some of that marketing that's going to happen. And I know I don't talk about, this is not a Leonardtown necessarily business, but the Keeping It Local just opened up again in Morganza, and I went up there and they had some really cute stuff and some really neat butterfly jewelry, which I kind of thought was fun for us here in the town of Leonardtown. So, and even though it's not in Leonardtown, some of the vendors are Leonardtown vendors, so go ahead and support your local business. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Unless there's anything else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Mary,
Second.
second by Tyler. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.